Now for this project you're going to need 6 pieces of MDF in 3 different sizes, basically 2 pieces in each size. Now the 2 bigger pieces are going to be the base, and they are 23 5/8 of an inch long or 600mm and 12 inch or 305mm wide. These 2 pieces are 8 inch or 204mm square on both sides, and the 2 smaller pieces are 8 inch or 204mm long and 4.5 inch or 115mm wide, and these are going to form the 2 uprights. Now this is made out of 18mm thick MDF, but you can use plywood if you like. I'm gluing these together to make a much thicker, more solid piece, but if you can manage to get this in 25mm or 1 inch thick sheets, which you can get, it would be heavy enough on its own without having to glue 2 pieces together. You'll also need a 3mm drill bit and a countersunk piece, or if you have one handy, a drill and countersink combination piece, which is much handier to work with. You'll also need some 4x30mm long wood screws with a countersunk head, plus 4 of these here. They're a combination bolt. They have an M8 machine thread on one end and a heavy wood screw thread on the other end. Now I don't know if you can still get these. These have been lying around the workshop for as long as I remember, and they used to be used for joining joints in wooden handrail on staircases together. But if you're stuck, you could use a standard M8 threaded bar cut into lengths. Probably be easier to get a hold of and do near enough the same job. You'll also need 4 wing nuts that fit the thread and 4 large washers. These are 1.5 inch in diameter, but basically any size will do. And we'll show you how we get on now.
The first job for me is to glue these boards together. So I first start off with marking a line about 1 inch in from the edge of the boards. It doesn't have to be exact, as this is only a rough guide for the countersunk screw holes. Then using the battery drill, I bore a 3mm countersunk hole in each corner. Then a few more evenly spaced out round the sides. Then setting it to the side, I take the other half and apply a good generous helping of glue, working my way out round the outsides and then filling in the middle. Once I've that done, I take the other matching board and I set it onto the top of it and firmly push it into place. Then place a 4x30mm long screw into each of the holes you've just bored. This will ensure they're at hand and that you're not hooking around the bench looking for them while you're trying to hold the board steady. Then match the 2 boards up, starting in one of the corners. Then move on to the next corner, and so on as you work your way around the board, ensuring that the 2 boards are matched up together evenly. Then screw the screws in around the outsides. Once you've all 3 boards glued together, set them on top of each other and set something heavy on top of them and leave them overnight for the glue to harden. Once the glue's hardened, take the larger of the 3 boards and find the middle, top and bottom. Then draw a line straight down the centre, lengthwise. Now mark in top and bottom 2 inches or 50mm. 50 mm. and square these lines across. Now, since I want my bolt holes approximately 5 inch or 128mm apart, I mark a line 2.5 inch or 64mm on either side of the central line. Then, since I want to be able to adjust the stand for length, I make another 3 marks up from one end, 1 inch apart. And square these across. Then, using the ruler set to the marks I made earlier, I draw a line straight through the centre of them all. This will ensure all the bolt holes are exactly in alignment. Using a 9mm drill bit, bore a hole in the centre of each of these marks. I have a piece of scrap timber clamped to the back of the board I'm boring through, so that the drill doesn't make a mess as it exits the board. Then on the 2 smaller boards, mark a line halfway across the 8 inch or 204mm side and square a line across. Then mark either side of this 2.5 inch or 64mm, again to give you an overall distance of 5 inch or 128mm. These should then match up with the holes you bored in the base. Once you've squared the lines across, take the ruler and use it to mark the central point of the board's thickness. This is quite easy to see in my case because this is 2 boards glued together. Then take a square and mark the central line down the face of the board on both sides. This will be useful in future reference. Then, using a 7mm drill bit, bore the centre of these holes out. I have the bit marked with a piece of white tape for the exact depth I need to match the combination bolt or dowel screw at 32mm deep. Taking the smallest of the 3 pieces, mark a line 3.25 inch or 82mm in from the end with the drill holes in it and square a line across. Then mark 5/16 of an inch or 8mm on either side of the central line to give a total distance of 5/8 of an inch or 16mm. Then another 2 lines above that along the top edge, 1.25 inch or 32mm from either side of the central line to give a total distance of 2.5 inch or 64mm. Then join these lines together with the ruler to make a U shape. Then, using a large coin or a washer like I have, round the corners off nicely. This is going to be the rear rest for the rifle. Once you have it marked out, cut it out with the jigsaw, but take your time when doing this. Give the saw time to cut cleanly and squarely, and follow the lines as best you can. Once you have it cut out, use a piece of sandpaper around a wooden block to sand off any rough saw marks on it. Then, using a piece of sandpaper wrapped around a piece of pipe, I beveled the bottom of the U-notch to give a slight angle. This was to match the angled shape of a rifle's butt. Then taking the 8" or 204mm square piece and measured up from the end with the drill holes again, 5 7/8 of an inch or 150mm, and squared a line across. Then measured 7/8 of an inch or 22mm from either side of the central line to give a total distance of 1 3/4 of an inch or 44mm. Then I marked another 2 lines along the top edge above this, 1 inch and 9/16 or 40mm out from the central line to give a total distance of 3 1/8 of an inch or 80mm. Then I join these lines up again with the ruler to give an even larger U-notch. Then again using a coin or large washer to round off the corners. This is going to be the front upright for the rifle rest. Once you have it marked out, cut it out again with a jigsaw, being as neat as you can and following the lines. You'll notice even here with a good sharp blade, round the sharp corners the saw has burnt the wood. So again, using a block of timber with some sandpaper wrapped round it, round everything off and sand it down. Then with each upright locked into the vise, take the combination bolt or dowel screw, dip the end of it into some grease to help them cut into the timber better, and screw them into the 7mm holes. I put the wing nuts onto these to help give me a grip to turn them in, but sooner or later you're going to have to take a spanner or a pair of pliers to help tighten them down in. But don't damage the threads and don't over tighten them. Remember, you only want them to go to 32mm deep. The last thing to do is to add some rubber feet. These are actually rubber door stoppers that I used and screwed roughly about 1.5 inches in from each corner. So to put the whole thing together, take the rear rest and put it into your selected holes at the back for the distance you want. Then take the front rest and push it through the front holes. Turn the whole thing over onto its back. Then apply the washers to the bolts and tighten the wing nuts down. Finger tight will be more than enough here. And there you go, one rifle rest. But yeah, it is quite grubby looking and plain, so I just couldn't leave it like that. So I went round and filled all the screw holes, sanded the whole thing down, and even added a 45-degree bevel to all the edges, which really cleaned the whole thing up nicely. And here's the finished product. I even give it a coat of Plastiacoat crinkle effect paint, which gives the paint a cracked and weathered appeal. I also added some foam rubber to the inside of the U-notches, which I cut from an old mouse mat and stuck into place with some double-sided carpet tape. I originally allowed for the size of this when making up the size of the U-notches, and it really helps in cushioning the rifle and holding it firmly in place. With the wing nuts in the base, the mount can easily be adjusted for size or just stored flat when not in use. In hindsight, I would adjust the front mount a little lower, as my BSA here rides a little too high at the front. But if I was using it as a serious shooting aid, I would add some form of adjustable feet to it. But as a means of holding your rifle firmly while working on it, doing minor maintenance, or even mounting a scope on it, it works quite well indeed.